The journey of leadership is often viewed as a sudden destination, a title bestowed, an office occupied, or a role finally won. Yet, in truth, the path to becoming an impactful leader is a slow, intricate weaving of every thought, action, and word spoken throughout a lifetime. Every experience, whether a triumph in a small community group or a challenge faced in a family setting, serves as a foundation for the person who stands at the helm today. Leadership manifests in a myriad of forms, appearing in the quiet corners of home life, the vibrant energy of a local sports team, or the high-stakes environment of a global corporation. Whether one is managing a large and complex family in a bustling urban center or overseeing a fledgling startup in its earliest days, the essence of leadership remains constant. It is the art of inspiring, organizing, and motivating others toward a common horizon. In the current global landscape, the call for more effective leadership echoes through every sector of society. From the halls of government in Europe to the boardrooms of the American continent, there is a palpable struggle to find focus and consistency. Many institutions face crises not because of a lack of resources, but because of a vacuum in guidance. We see businesses faltering under the weight of competition, public sectors strained to their limits, and even local communities fractured by scandals and internal strife. These failures are often reminders of the fragility of leadership when it is not nurtured by the right habits and mindsets. When an individual contemplates the image of a successful leader, they might think of a visionary entrepreneur or a high-ranking official, but leadership is just as vital in the less visible roles: the neighborhood coordinator, the dedicated partner, or the resilient supervisor. The aspiration to grow as a leader is a noble pursuit, but it is one that requires a deep and honest exploration of one's own tools and weaknesses. Far too often, individuals in positions of authority leave their most potent skills underutilized while clinging to habits that hinder their progress. This realization is the starting point for a transformative journey. It is a moment to pause and reflect on how one wishes to be remembered by those they have guided, and how they intend to cultivate the next generation of leaders. Leadership is not a static state, but a dynamic process of self-discovery, involving the mastery of motivation, the refinement of communication, and the courage to face change head-on. It is a commitment to becoming the kind of person others truly want to follow. To begin this evolution, one must understand that a leader's growth is fueled by something as fundamental and essential as light and water are to a plant. This vital energy allows the leader to expand, to reach higher, and to eventually flourish. Without this nourishment, the leader risks stagnation, remaining confined within the limits of their own perspectives and biases. Imagine the peril of a leader who operates in total isolation, never hearing the resonance of their own actions in the lives of others. This lack of external input creates a dangerous illusion of competence, where blind spots go unnoticed and mistakes go uncorrected. The true narrative of leadership begins when an individual chooses to step out of the shadows of their own ego and into the light of external insight. This brings us to a critical question. How does a leader truly know if their influence is positive, or if their actions are steering the ship toward a hidden reef? The answer lies in the willingness to seek out and accept the perceptions of others. It is the choice to look into the metaphorical mirror, even if the reflection it shows is not entirely flattering. As we delve into this exploration of growth, we find that the most successful leaders are not those who are perfect, but those who are the most aware. They are the ones who understand that their greatest asset is the honesty of the people around them. This creates a compelling curiosity. What happens to a leader who stops guessing and starts asking? What shifts occur when the silence of a team is replaced by the vibrant, constructive flow of honest feedback? At the heart of the leadership challenge lies a profound paradox. The more authority an individual attains, the more isolated they often become from the very truth they need to survive. In any professional or social setting, there exists a persistent danger that a leader might fall into the trap of perceived perfection. Without the steady chime of honest opinions or the grounding force of external observations, it is all too easy for a leader to develop the illusion that their methods are flawless, their habits are beyond reproach, and their performance is peak. This silence is not a sign of excellence, but a warning of an approaching precipice. The narrative of a successful leader is not one of static perfection, but of constant, sometimes painful adjustment. Consider the internal struggle of a leader operating in a vacuum. In their mind, every decision is sound and every directive is clear. Yet beneath the surface, the morale of the team might be fraying or the objectives might be drifting off course. This individual is essentially driving a high-powered vehicle through a crowded landscape without the use of rear-view mirrors. To the leader, the path ahead looks clear, but the sides and the rear of the vehicle are shrouded in blind spots. These blind spots represent the experiences and perceptions of those they lead, the employees, the volunteers, the family members, or the colleagues who see the friction and the missed opportunities that the leader remains unaware of. The tension arises when the leader realizes that their own perspective is inherently limited and that their success depends entirely on their ability to see through the eyes of others. Success in leadership, therefore, requires a deliberate dismantling of this wall of silence. It necessitates an understanding that how others perceive the leader is the actual reality of that leader's influence. If a manager believes they are motivating their team, but the team feels micromanaged and stifled, the leader is failing, regardless of their intent. This fundamental gap between intention and perception is where the most significant leadership crises are born. To bridge this gap, a leader must recognize that feedback is not merely an optional extra or a formal HR requirement. It is the vital intelligence required to navigate the complexities of human interaction. It provides the clarity needed to refine one's own behavior and to align the team's efforts with the overarching mission. In the diverse environments of Latin America, Europe, or the American continent, the struggle remains the same. The ego often acts as a barrier to growth. Many leaders fear that seeking feedback will make them look weak or indecisive, when in fact the opposite is true. The act of inviting critique is a demonstration of profound confidence and a commitment to excellence. It signals to the collective that the goal is more important than the leader's pride. This shift in mindset moves the narrative away from the leader as a finished product and toward the leader as a work in progress. It is the beginning of a transformation that turns a solitary figurehead into a dynamic force capable of evolving alongside their organization. However, the journey toward this clarity is fraught with human complexity. Not everyone is ready to give the truth, and not every leader is ready to hear it. People often hesitate to speak honestly for fear of causing discomfort or facing repercussions. They might feel they don't know the leader well enough to offer value, or they may simply lack the vocabulary to express their frustrations constructively. This creates a landscape where the leader must not only be willing to listen, but must also become a skilled architect of a culture where truth is safe. The central conflict of this stage is the leader's battle against the natural human tendency towards self-protection and the comfort of ignorance, pushing instead toward a vulnerability that ultimately leads to greater strength. This transition from isolation to openness marks the first major development in the leader's evolution. In the deepening narrative of a leader's growth, the focus shifts toward the mechanics and the emotional landscape of feedback itself. Feedback is the mirror that reflects the reality of a leader's impact, yet it is a tool that many find difficult to wield effectively. To understand this better, one must look at feedback not as a series of criticisms, but as a map of the territory the leader is navigating. It covers every facet of the professional and interpersonal existence: how a leader communicates, how they motivate, the way they make decisions, and the spirit in which they collaborate. The successful leader recognizes that these insights are the currency of improvement. While they may not agree with every single word uttered or every critique offered, they understand that the simple knowledge of how others feel is far superior to the darkness of ignorance. This quest for insight often leads to a deeper exploration of human dynamics. Why is it that feedback, which is essentially a free resource, is so often avoided? The reasons are rooted in the complex emotions of the workplace and the community. In many organizations, there is a hidden culture of hesitation. Subordinates or peers may worry about the fallout of being too honest, or they may feel that their observations won't be taken seriously. A leader who is truly committed to their own evolution must work to dismantle these barriers. They must actively seek out feedback from anyone who knows them in their work, while simultaneously respecting the boundaries and comfort levels of those they ask. It is an exercise in empathy and patience, recognizing that not everyone is ready to serve as a mirror, but those who are can provide life-changing perspectives. The emotional subtext of receiving feedback can be intense. It requires a leader to sit with discomfort, to listen without the immediate urge to defend themselves, and to see their own actions through a lens they might have never considered. This is where the true character of a leader is tested. For instance, in an office in Latin America or a school in the American continent, a leader might discover that their attempts at being efficient are being perceived as cold or dismissive. This realization can be a jarring turning point. It forces the leader to reflect on the symbols they project. Are they a lighthouse guiding the way, or a wall blocking the path?
the narrative tension builds as the leader begins to see the disconnect between their inner identity and their outer reputation. As the leader dives deeper into this process, the realization dawns that feedback should not be an occasional event, but a regular rhythm of the leadership life. Many organizations attempt to capture this through formal anonymous surveys conducted once or twice a year. While these processes have value and offer a safe starting point for honesty, they are often too infrequent and detached to foster real day-to-day transformation. The narrative of growth requires something more intimate and frequent. It demands an informal, proactive approach where the leader takes the initiative to ask the hard questions in real time. This movement from the formal to the personal represents a deepening of the leader's commitment to their team and their own development. This journey toward deep insight eventually leads the leader to ask questions that go beyond the past. They begin to look for the patterns in their behavior that consistently produce specific results. They look at the emotional atmosphere they create when they enter a room. By asking their colleagues or subordinates for monthly reflections, they create a steady flow of data that helps them adjust their sales. They might ask, "What have I done well this month, and where did I fall short?" Or, "How did my communication impact our progress?" Each answer, whether positive or negative, becomes a building block in a more robust and resilient leadership style. The leader is no longer just guessing at their effectiveness. They are becoming a student of their own influence, preparing for a revelation that will change the way they view the future of their career.
The turning point in the leader's journey occurs when the focus shifts from looking at the past to intentionally shaping the future. While understanding past mistakes is essential, there is a powerful, more dynamic tool that successful leaders eventually discover. This revelation is the transition from feedback to feed-forward. In the professional environments of Europe, the American continent, or any bustling region of the world, this shift represents a profound change in the leader's trajectory. It is the moment the leader stops merely asking for an autopsy of what has already happened and begins asking for a blueprint of what can be. This conceptual leap transforms the dialogue between the leader and the team from one of critique to one of collaboration and shared vision. Imagine a critical scene where a leader gathers their team not to defend their previous month's performance, but to ask a simple yet revolutionary question. In the coming month, what do you recommend I try to do more of or do better? This is the essence of feed forward. It is an act of looking through the windshield rather than the rearview mirror. By focusing on future behavior and improvement, the leader removes much of the sting and defensiveness that can accompany discussions about past failures. It invites the team to become consultants in the leader's growth, giving them a stake in the leader's future success. This revelation changes the entire atmosphere of the relationship. It creates a forward-moving momentum that is infectious and empowering for everyone involved. This climax of understanding brings the leader to a place of intense clarity. They realize that they don't have to be the sole architect of their own improvement. The people they lead are in fact their greatest resource for innovation and personal development. The intensity of this realization comes from the breaking down of the traditional hierarchy. In this moment, the leader is vulnerable, admitting they have room to grow and that they value the wisdom of those around them. This isn't a collapse of authority, but an evolution of it. It is the most dramatic turning point in the narrative because it signifies the death of the all-knowing leader and the birth of the ever-learning leader. The leader who asks for feed forward is signaling that they are ready to change and that they are committed to the collective success of the team above their own image. The impact of this shift is immediate and profound. As the leader begins to implement the suggestions received through this forward-looking lens, the team notices a tangible change in the environment. The blind spots that once caused friction begin to dissolve as the leader gains a panoramic view of their own influence. In the home region or in a multinational setting, the result is the same. The team feels heard, respected, and invested. The climax of this process is not a single event, but a series of realizations that redefine what it means to lead. The leader sees that their power does not come from being right, but from being open. This is the moment where the story shifts from the leader's internal struggle to the external evidence of their growth. Transitioning into this state of understanding requires the leader to embrace a new kind of discipline. It is the discipline of gratitude. Every piece of advice, every recommendation for the future, and every honest observation must be met with a sincere acknowledgement. Whether through a personal note or a direct word of thanks, the leader reinforces the value of the truth they have received. This gratitude is the final piece of the turning point. It seals the bond of trust between the leader and those they lead. The consequences of this shift are far-reaching, leading away from the stagnant patterns of the past and toward a horizon of limitless potential. The leader has finally learned to harness the energy of those around them, turning the water and light of feedback into the sustained fuel of personal and professional excellence.
In the aftermath of these revelations, a quiet transformation begins to take root within the leader and the surrounding organization. The immediate intensity of the turning point settles into a new, more sustainable way of operating. The leader finds that by regularly seeking both feedback and feed forward, the environment becomes more transparent and less laden with hidden tensions. The consequences of this openness are felt in every interaction. Decisions are made with more comprehensive information. Communication becomes clear because the leader is aware of how they are being heard, and the team's morale rises as they see their input directly influencing the leader's evolution. This is the stage of the story where the internal shifts manifest as external stability and progress. One of the most significant consequences is the dismantling of the perfection trap once and for all. The leader no longer carries the heavy, exhausting burden of needing to appear flawless. There is a newfound freedom in acknowledging that growth is a permanent state. This change in the leader's internal world ripples outward. When a leader is seen actively working on their own habits and skills, it creates a permission structure for everyone else in the organization or the family to do the same. In the American continent, in England, or in any corner of the world, this leads to a culture of continuous improvement. The aftermath of the leader's decision to listen is a team that is more resilient, more adaptable, and more aligned with the shared mission. However, this resolution does not mean that the leader must blindly follow every piece of advice they receive. A crucial part of this stage is the development of discernment. The leader learns to weigh the feedback they gather, considering the source, the context, and the ultimate goals of the team. They understand that while they must be open to all opinions, they remain the primary steward of their own path. Not all feedback is equally useful, and some may even be contradictory. The leader's task is to ponder each idea, reflecting on which insights will truly help them become more effective. This process of filtering and applying information is where the leader's wisdom is forged. It is a sophisticated internal transformation that balances vulnerability with strength. As the narrative settles, we see the leader moving with a different kind of grace. They have integrated the external mirror into their daily life. The blind spots that once threatened to derail their progress are now areas of conscious focus. The act of thanking those who provide feedback has become a natural habit, reinforcing a culture of mutual respect. In the home region, a manager might find that their relationship with their subordinates has shifted from one of distant authority to one of collaborative partnership. The aftermath of feedback is not just a better leader, but a better connected human being. The internal walls have come down, and in their place is a bridge of communication that supports the weight of the team's collective ambitions. This resolution brings a sense of settling and clarity. The leader now understands that leadership is not a lonely climb, but a shared journey. They have seen the evidence that their own growth is inextricably linked to the honesty of those they lead. The quiet aftermath of this realization is a leader who is more present, more aware, and more capable of handling the challenges that lie ahead. The narrative moves smoothly towards its conclusion, having shown that the simple act of asking and the humble act of accepting can redefine the entire experience of leadership. The consequences of this choice have turned a potentially disastrous path into one of flourishing and expansion, setting the stage for a final reflection on the deeper meaning of this journey.
To conclude this narrative of growth and leadership, we return to the essential image of the plant. A leader's life is not a fixed monument, but a living, breathing entity that requires constant nourishment to thrive. The journey from isolation to openness, from the past-focused critique to the future-oriented feed-forward, reveals a profound truth about the human experience. We are at our best when we are seen by others. Leadership, in its highest form, is the willingness to be seen in all one's imperfections, and the courage to use that visibility as a catalyst for expansion. The water and light of feedback are not just for the leader's benefit, they are for the health of the entire ecosystem they sustain. Through this exploration, it becomes clear that the most successful leaders in Latin America, Europe, or any part of the world are those who have mastered the art of listening. They understand that their perspective is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. By seeking the truth from those they lead, they gather the remaining pieces, allowing them to see the full picture of their organization and themselves. This commitment to clarity is what separates a mediocre leader from an exceptional one. It is a philosophical shift that moves the focus from power over others to power with others. The ultimate takeaway is that leadership is a relational act. It exists in the space between the leader and the follower, and that space is kept healthy through the honest exchange of ideas and perceptions. The essence of this journey is the realization that growth is never finished. Every month, every interaction, and every challenge provides a new opportunity to ask, to listen, and evolve. The leader who treats their role as a continuous learning experience will always find a way to flourish, no matter how harsh the environment. This ongoing process of refinement creates a legacy that extends far beyond immediate results. It builds future leaders, fosters trust, and creates a culture where everyone feels valued and heard.
The closing reflection for any leader is to consider their own mirrors. Are they looking into them regularly, or are they still driving through life with blind spots? In the end, the act of asking for feedback and feed forward is an act of love for the mission and respect for the team. It is a humble admission that the collective wisdom of the group is greater than the wisdom of any one individual. This realization leaves the leader with a sense of peace and a clear direction. They are no longer wandering in the dark, wondering how they are perceived. They are walking in the light, guided by the very people they serve. It is a powerful and inspiring message that our greatest strengths are often revealed to us through the eyes of those we have the privilege to lead. As the story of this chapter closes, the image that remains is one of a leader who is not afraid to flourish. They stand tall, like a plant that has received the perfect balance of light and water, their branches expanding to provide shade and support for others. The narrative ends not with a final destination, but with a sense of perpetual motion and endless possibility. For the leader who chooses to ask and accept, the world is not a place of obstacles, but a landscape of opportunities for growth. This is the heart of leadership, the core of success, and the path to a meaningful and lasting impact.